So it's great to be here. Thank you to Umbraco for having me. This is my first Codegarden. This is also my first time speaking on stage, although the people that know me from back home know that I can talk. I can definitely talk, but maybe not in front of people like this. I'll give it my best shot. So yes, I'm Colin McMillan. I'm Technical Director and Co-owner at Factory 73. I'm here to talk about the project that we've been doing for the last 18 months, building an e-commerce-enabled website for a major whiskey brand, as we introduced. What that really is building a multi-brand and multilingual, disposable, composable DXP platform around Umbraco, Shopify, HubSpot, and Salesforce to enable DTC e-commerce for a premium Scotch whiskey brand. Which is a fair mouthful. No AI was abused in the making of this presentation at all. I should say that up front. This is all our own work. To break that down a little bit, it's about how we built a beautiful new website for a premium brand of whiskey. It's how and why we chose a composable, I need to stop saying disposable, it's terrible. Composable DXP architecture around Umbraco. The challenges we faced integrating multiple platforms along the way, why we load balanced, what we were load balancing for and how we did that, and how we use DevOps to ensure 100% uptime during deploys, and then a little bit around Engage at the end and how we've added that to the platform and what that brings to the overall environment. So quick introduction, who is Factory 73? We are an Umbraco Gold partner based in Glasgow. We are dev-focused. We don't have design in-house. We don't have marketing in-house. We partner up with anybody to do that. But we focus on what we enjoy. We focus on .NET builds, applications, websites, and so on. There is 18 of us, including our Chief Distraction Officer in the corner there, Ernie. And yeah, we've been growing consistently since we started. We've been working with Umbraco for over 15 years. And we got made Gold Partner last year, so delighted about that. We work with businesses across all sectors. We are not precious about who we work with. We work a lot in public sector, a lot in healthcare, government, and universities. And we have a major recruitment platform, which is also an Umbraco multi-region, multilingual platform. And what I'm about to talk to you about today is in particular for our client, Whyte and Mackay. But before I get onto that, who the hell am I to be up here talking to you? I was told I should tell some things about myself. So I'm self-taught developer, still hands-on. I went to the Wayback Machine and I found my first website, which is best viewed in IE5. So that gives you an idea how old I am. I think IE5 was slightly better than IE 5.5 from what I can remember, but everyone built websites for their friend's band back in the day. So this is my first website, and this is my second website, which I tried to set up my own agency. It lasted about a year before I had to get a proper job and knuckle down in the land of corporate. But I've been told to say a little bit about myself personally. So I am an avid music fan. I've been DJing since I was 16. If anyone knows of any record shops in Odense, give me a shout. I'll go digging. I'll buy some anything, jazz, funk, techno. I coach these guys, which is probably the biggest leadership challenge of my life. Team of 20 under 15s. It's a roller coaster. Never a dull moment, emotionally draining, and even harder than being an owner of a digital agency. But I also really like whiskey, and this is my personal collection. The locals might spot a Stauning over here, which I picked up after visiting Legoland last year. 17 distilleries in Denmark, I understand. None of them can call themselves Scotch, though. But it's actually really nice. It's a good one. And my favorite is right in the middle there, which is the Dalmore, which I'm here to talk about today. So the Dalmore is owned by a company called Whyte and Mackay. Whyte and Mackay started making whiskey in 1884. They were an independent distillery, like all distilleries were. And over time, they became bigger and they became a major brand and were able to acquire some smaller distilleries and add to their portfolio. As a group, they've been bought and sold a few times, as would be typical at that scale. And in 1960, they bought the Dalmore. The Dalmore dates back to 1839, so it's a very, very old brand. And the Dalmore is the flagship brand in amongst all these whiskies, with one sherry right on the end there, but mostly a whisky group of companies. Whyte and Mackay always traditionally sold through retail outlets, sold to wholesale, sold to supermarkets, sold to off-licenses, liquor stores, and online through sites like Master of Malt. And they had very little direct customer interaction with the people who are actually drinking the drink. They had stores like this and little pop-ups in major airports, some major cities, pop-up boutiques that might last a few months. And the consumer interaction was very limited. And the brand and the group were aware of this. This was a problem. They know what they sell. They can sell whiskey, they can make whiskey, that's not a problem. But who is actually enjoying it? Why are they buying it? For what reasons? Are they buying it to collect, to gift, to consume themselves, to share with friends? There was very limited knowledge about their actual consumer. So we needed to answer that question. This was not a project purely about selling whiskey, although the business didn't know if they could sell whiskey, if anybody would buy direct from the brand website. There was a lot of skepticism about that. But at the same time, the digital channel was the perfect opportunity to get to know their consumers and understand them a bit better, and then be able to tailor conversations with them and really engage with them and learn from them and understand what direction the brand should take. So we built a website. We don't build websites anymore. We built an experience platform, of course. And this had to reflect the premium nature of the drink. So it was a lot of effort and a lot of time spent building a really nice UX for the site. Mobile first. Shout out to Ida Olsen at Iona Commerce, who built the UX for this and also delivered us the best Figma that we've ever had from any design partner. A joy to work with, really great to collaborate with Ida, and our understanding of the whole brand was pivotal in delivering what is a really beautiful experience on the website. The website sells in the UK, and we've just started selling in Spain through a boutique in Madrid. And this will give you an idea of the scale of the brand. You can buy a bottle in the shelves in the supermarkets for £65, or if you want to spend most of your wages, you can buy a bottle of the 45-year-old for €22,400. That's €500 for every year that bottle has been maturing. They go beyond that. If you're super rich, you can invest in a cask at about £1 million. So it's a really desirable, really sought-after brand, and people are invested in it, mainly because it's a beautiful drink. It's really nice. And if you hang about at the end, I might be able to give you a taste. So we're in multiple regions, multiple countries. Just come and see me. It's like, that might not last long, but we'll see. We'll give it a shot. We're in 3 English territories, UK, US, and rest of world English. Then we've got French, we've got Spanish, and we've got Latin American Spanish and Chinese. And we're going to grow the brand out and the website platform out with more and more languages. We have functional control within Umbraco. We have to have an age gate to make sure you're legal drinking age. I'll be testing you before I give you a shot later on. And we have great control over the product detail pages and the listings by managing statuses, being integrated with Shopify, inventory and stock levels, understanding if something is coming back into stock or if something's just gone out of stock or if something's been archived. They won't bottle the 28-year-old anymore. They're not going to do it. So there's a lot of control there. We can control the checkout journey. We have gift messaging. We have personalization of bottles coming out of Spain because they have a really nice engraving machine. So we're able to control all that journey within Umbraco using headless and API integrations all the way through. The main focus, though, is to drive people towards becoming members of the Dalmore Guild. That lets us get to know who you are. Sign up to the Guild, get an exclusive offer, get an invitation to come and buy some really nice whiskey before anybody else can get their hands on it. So we have a login, we have registration, we have a self-serve area inside the website where you can look at your orders and update your delivery details and all that kind of thing. So underneath all that, what does Umbraco look like? We are load balanced, as I mentioned. So that means currently, it might be changing with new offerings in cloud. We didn't put this in cloud mainly because we needed to load balance, and it wasn't available or supported at that point. But we have an authoring instance of Umbraco that is the publisher, And we have 2 front ends at the moment, which are the subscribers to all the content changes and can update their caches. We have that replicated across staging, of course, and as time has gone on, staging has been less of a testing environment and more of a proper content staging environment. So we've got uSync complete in here, and we use uSync complete across all our clients beyond a certain level. And our client can manage all their new campaigns, new content pages, updates to pages on staging really safely, check them, get them signed off, and then use uSync to push them out to production. So very, very few changes should be getting made on production. We then add Microsoft B2C, as it was called, Entra ID today, might be something else tomorrow, knowing Azure. But we wanted to separate out the authentication from Umbraco because of the composable architecture, which I'll go into in a little second. And then we add a test environment because we need one for longer running features and all our favorite packages, including Translation Manager, which I'll talk about in a moment, and Engage, which I'll talk about towards the end. So we use Umbraco like you use Umbraco yourselves. There's nothing special about this. We have a tree for every region. We have block grid editor. We have good use of images and image cropper and all that kind of stuff. But we also put in some integration settings into the CMS. So this page can tie together that page with a Shopify product. It can tie together this page if it was in campaign mode with HubSpot and what kind of campaigns might be running there. And obviously, you can control your sales state and put the page into different states through controls that the editor can make. And then Translation Manager I touched on earlier. So this really is fantastic for what we are doing. Before this and before AI translations, there was one mention of AI. We used to have to farm out the XLF files to a translation partner who would then find a translator in that area, and then they would translate it. It would take days or weeks, and it would come back, and then somebody would argue with the wording, and then it would go back and forward, back and forward. But with some connectors in Translation Manager, particularly DeepL, which we found to be the best one, we were able to take the English International site, run it through that, get Latin American Spanish, import that into a new tree, and have up and running very, very quickly a Latin American Spanish site. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be a really great starting point. It'll do your dictionary items, it'll do your content. And then a local editor just needs to go in, review, sense check, make sure it's in correct tone of voice for the brand, tweak it, and that process can just take a few days, and you're ready to publish that and get it live. So why is Umbraco great for all this? Well, I'm preaching to the choir here, but for us as a development agency, we're in familiar territory with a great CMS, really flexible. We have the best of both worlds between client-server, which is easy and it's good for SEO and it's got less headaches, but also we can have headless elements in there with the content API and with our own surface controllers that we built. So the cart experience is all single-page application. We have a really maintainable code structure architecture. The guys at the business all know where to put their code. They all work in the same way. Projects are interchangeable. It's all very logical and sensible. And we can move really fast. This project was delivered in 3 months. We thought in those 3 months that we were going to be iterating on the previous MVP, but when we saw the UX, we were basically starting again. But because it's Umbraco, because it's fast and it's easy to use, there's very few unknowns, we were able to get through this project within 3 months last summer. And that was the reason I wasn't at Codegarden last year. For the client, they've got complete control over the UX. They're in familiar territory with their CMS. They know what they're doing. Functional components we build have got settings, and they can go and change them and tweak them for different use cases. The components, crucially, are reusable across all regions, and ultimately across more brands. This is the Dalmore website right now, but we are building a platform where other brands can join us. And there's no nasty hike in costs. If you were building this on Shopify and you came to a point where you wanted something, Shopify might turn around and say, you need Shopify Plus for this. $2,500 a month, straight off the bat. So we can build more in Umbraco than you can get out of the box in Shopify on its starter plan. And it's future-proofed. I think you probably agree, but I've not had a requirement yet that we can't achieve on an Umbraco website. I'm waiting for somebody to give me something that I go, I've had you shouldn't do that, but I've never had you can't do that. So it's a great starting point to be part of a composable DXP. So I'm assuming you all know what I mean by composable DXP, but we're really looking at an architecture where you're plugging in the best-in-class systems to work together in one ecosystem rather than trying to build one solution which does everything and is wedded in a kind of monolithic architecture. So we obviously started with Umbraco at the center, and what we've done in this case is we've added in an API application alongside it, tightly coupled. From there, we are transacting and integrating with Shopify. There's actually 2 of these now. We've got a separate one for Madrid. We've got a separate one for UK. HubSpot CRM was a recommendation. We like HubSpot. We use it all the time, find it really, really robust, flexible, customizable, and yeah, I think it's a great CRM. And then Salesforce Service Cloud comes in because the customer service team who take the calls, the emails, the social questions that come up on social channels, they're using Salesforce Service Cloud, so we need to integrate with that as well. And then there's all the tracking. All the tracking. There's so much tracking. We'd send tons of data layer stuff to Google Analytics 4. We are also pushing lots and lots of events to Rudderstack. Rudderstack is a kind of, it's a bit like a really enterprise level Zapier. It's bringing in data from all the channels. It's pushing that data out to a data lake in various repositories. And then from there, they're building management dashboards for the customer, for the client, to be able to see what's going on in the overall ecosystem, from customer service requests all the way through to orders and sales and new signups. This all works really nicely in RESTful services and webhooks and things like that. It's all really tightly knitted together in real time until DPD came along. Now, DPD can integrate with Shopify, plug and play, bond them together. Every time something gets delivered, Shopify gets to know about it, customer emails are all triggered, and then that information would make it across to HubSpot. But for reasons not in our case, we were not able to do that. The fulfillment partner had a specific way of working with DPD, and we couldn't use that connector. So we've had to go a bit old school, and what we do is we go fishing. So every 15 minutes, we cast a line into the DPD world to see if there's anything to catch. Most of the time, there's not. We're sending new orders that'll sit in the warehouse for a day, and then they'll sit in DPD's warehouse for a day before they're actually out for delivery. But we're looking for that delivery status. When we find out it's in the van, that's when we care. That's when we've caught an XML fish. And after that, it'll be delivered, and we'll catch that as well. And we'll update Shopify, and we'll update HubSpot with those statuses. So then we can automate a nice email to the client, the customer, to say, you received your whiskey. We hope you really like it. Here's some tasting notes. Here's some follow-up marketing that we want to do with them. But we didn't expect to go old school. There's some kids in the digital world these days who've not done XML since university. So it maybe takes somebody a bit older to get their head around that. And then we add more Umbraco instances to it. That's not quite happened yet, but we will be adding more brands to this. And that entire ecosystem will probably remain in place. If one of those brands needs on our platform, you can plug that in, because it's all separated. The piece in the middle, the API part, we call the centralized application layer, as I like to call it, CAL 9000. CAL 9000 is our black box of all our integrations. There he is there. It's another AI reference, I'm just realizing. But CAL 9000 is not sentient, as far as I'm aware. So this piece in the middle, .NET-based, has all our web services, our API server and client calls going out to other parties. We've got about 50 endpoints there to cover all the different transactions that we need. We've got Hangfire in there, scheduler, the schedule task for DPD being the main one, also some maintenance routines, and then we can do fire and forget tasks through that as well. All the business logic, mapping, rules, everything else is handled in here. And it delivers Umbraco what Umbraco needs and only what Umbraco needs. Most importantly, audit logs. Can't stress enough the power of logging. In a world like this, when you've got data flying around all over the place and you get a customer inquiry and they're saying, oh, I don't know, I don't have a delivered status in that order, why does that happen? If you don't have logging on, you really can't answer that question. So we log all incoming requests, the raw request JSON. We log the raw response JSON. We redact anything too sensitive, of course. But it gives that, along with integration with application insights on both the Umbraco side. We ship Serilog to application insights. We ship the logs from this to application insights. We get a single view, and we can really, really quickly, if somebody can tell us when that happened, we can really, really quickly pin down, was it our request? Was it a bad response? Was it a 500 error? What went on there? And move quickly to go and fix that. So looking at the data itself and what actually happens in here, this gets a bit complicated. We are pushing product info from Shopify into Umbraco, synchronizing that. The cart is a Shopify cart behind the scenes underneath our UI. And we redirect the user onto Shopify for the actual checkout process. It's familiar, it's robust, it should be robust. We found 2 bugs in Shopify since we started using it, which you would not think was going to be the case with a platform that has millions of transactions every day. Didn't believe me on one of them, but I managed to get a video, and I managed to send them the video, and they didn't ever tell me it was fixed, but it's never happened since. So I'm assuming they did something under the hood there. Contact form submissions go to our partner Avocado 55 for Salesforce. And these 2 things along the top were plugged in by the CRM partner HubSpot at the very, very start. Out-of-the-box connectors to synchronize contacts back and forward between Salesforce and HubSpot, and back and forward orders into deals and contacts into contacts in the CRM. So that was version 1 of the ecosystem, until we discovered that these connectors don't do everything. The customer service team weren't getting orders. Pretty crucial when somebody phones up and says, where's my order? They need to know where the order is. So we ended up using webhooks out of Shopify to call us every time an order status changes. We then push that information across to Salesforce and across to HubSpot. A customization we didn't expect to have to make because of these magical connectors. So then going back to the big diagram, we add in all the tracking, and there's also meta advertising campaigns happening, so there's meta tracking, there's Rudderstack in there, and then finally, as I mentioned earlier on, DPD. And this will grow. There's things in this diagram that I've not put on because it's just getting too messy now. So the lessons about doing all that, the things we learned along the way is, first of all, despite the Salesforce not dealing with everything in orders, that's fine. We can work around that. But I was very surprised when I saw this screen and realized that Salesforce connector always prefers Salesforce. You can do one way, Salesforce to HubSpot. You can do 2-way, both directions. You cannot configure it to do HubSpot to Salesforce as a master. It's just not there. So we found properties being overwritten from Salesforce that we did not want to be overwritten. HubSpot should be the master for some of those properties. So that was a hurdle that we have had to manage as we've gone along. This is a cracker. The HubSpot are a communications company, right? They basically specialize in sending emails out to people. They deprecated the connector, and they sent one email to a mailbox that the person was off on long-term leave. So nobody noticed that email telling us that a critical module and critical integration component inside HubSpot was being deprecated. Unless you went into the particular connected apps part of HubSpot, somebody spotted this a week before it was going to be deprecated. So at the same time as we rapidly mobilized to try and mitigate this and fix it, I was on to HubSpot customer service going, what the heck? You know, you need to give people more notice. They chin me about everything else as an admin all the time if a new user is added or whatever else, but they failed to properly communicate this. But we made it work. And to be fair, the new integration is much, much better. They've created a cart object and an orders object. They're not shoehorning everything into deals anymore, and it's working really nicely. And then, of course, the XML surprise that came up through DPD. So I said I was going to talk a little bit about load balancing and why. We're trying to get 100%-ish uptime on this platform. Whether that's a dream we're going to still push hard and see what we can get. So this is the architecture of the hosting. This is what we've got going on. We always use Cloudflare. Cloudflare gives us brilliant DDoS protection, web application firewall, caching, and most recently, really good bot detection. So that's our edge protection layer and immediate DNS changes and loads of other things that Cloudflare brings to the party. We have our auth instance. We have an instance in UK South and an instance in UK West. You could add more instances around the world if you wanted people to access your CMS from a local node. Everything shares the one database. And we've had to employ Redis cache, so we can move session state into the cache, and no matter which front end you're on, you're going to get your cache running. And we used Azure Front Door for load balancing, partly because we had one there already for the B2C configuration, but also because Microsoft advertised it as being the right choice. We've got developers hitting DevOps. They can decide to switch Web 1 off and put all the traffic to Web 2 and deploy to Web 1. Blue-green deploys. Theoretical zero-downtime deploys. Some slight things to take care of when you're doing doc type changes and especially breaking changes, but it's still possible to do it in this way. This is all facilitated through some PowerShell within DevOps, where we are disabling one of the front ends on Azure Front Door. And again, this was all, in theory, perfect, and we started using it, and it's great. So going into what Microsoft actually advertise, so if you look at this table from their website, Azure Front Door, global, HTTPS, tick, tick, tick. Some of the other ones didn't really fit. DNS-based load balancing or application gateway, really expensive, and various other things that we were not particularly, didn't feel was a great fit. And we had the front door anyway. Azure Front Door is an application delivery network that provides global load balancing and site acceleration services for web applications. It offers layer 7 capabilities for your application like SSL offload, path-based routing, fast failover and caching to improve performance and high availability of your applications. Fast failover. This is the bit I have a real issue with. So to begin with, when we push a PowerShell command to disable one of the front ends, Microsoft tell us it will take between 3 and 20 minutes for that change to take effect across their network. That's just not good enough. So our DevOps is spinning while we're waiting for all that to happen. And I've even had cases where it's reported back it's offline, but there's still traffic going to it. So we are potentially still restarting users in that case. But it's not really built for failover. You can set it to health check, and that's all good. It's all good as long as you're happy to get 200 requests a minute from Azure Front Door nodes around the world, because every single region will be pinging you and making web requests to check if your site is healthy or not. It doesn't react to 503 timeouts. So if you're restarting your app, and for that minute, where Azure is just not really doing anything, and you're waiting for your app to start, it doesn't fail over. It doesn't fail over in 500 errors. And the best I've managed to achieve is a 16-second timeout, which will fail over if we have one of the front ends spinning up and Umbraco building its caches. But I have a real issue with this. In my world, I should be able to say, now all traffic goes there. And immediately, in a classic load balancer, that switch would say, right, okay, all traffic's going there, and we're safe. And it would also be detecting the first instance of a 503, a gateway timeout, something that is affecting the whole application. It's not like a single page error. It's the whole application's down, so switch that front end off, alert us, and send the traffic the right way. So in my view, it's not really fit for purpose, and we're actively looking at using Cloudflare Load Balancer now on the edge to do that stuff, because in my experience, Cloudflare changes are pretty much instantaneous. But we are getting there. This is 99.997% uptime across the month. We do have a glitch right there. Now, our monitoring software is in our office, which is not the best place for our monitoring software, so we're not quite sure what caused that. But it didn't last long enough to ping any alerts to us and for us to intervene. It resolved itself very quickly. So I think we're doing pretty good at getting the 100%-ish uptime. And we're deploying at least twice a week through this. So Tuesdays, Thursdays. We're even deploying on Fridays because we can. The changes we need to be careful about. We do have to support this stuff, but in general, we know that we can deploy on a Friday. We know we can deploy in a busy time for the brand and get things out. Even mid-campaign, we could put changes out to fix something that might have been caught at the last minute. So Sarah's going to talk a little bit about Engage. This was deployed into the Dalmore just earlier on this year. We've got Leon and Tom sitting over here representing. So before I go into it, I promised that I wasn't going to swear at this Codegarden talk. In Scotland, we're really good at swearing. But I am going to say the Sitecore word. So I previously was a gold partner for Sitecore and sold and developed on it with its full marketing suite, whatever they branded it up that year. So I'm familiar territory with the kind of features that Engage brings to Umbraco. And it's great to see this product here. It's great to see this so easily integrated. We're getting up to speed with it really quickly. Our clients are liking it, and it's coming in at a price point that for Sitecore would be costing you hundreds of thousands of pounds a year in licenses. So it's really cost effective. And looking forward to working closely with the Engage team, who are great, been giving us great support as we've got this up and running for 2 different clients. So what are we getting? We're getting server-side statistics. So a lot of clients were coming back to us really concerned about the drop-off in GA4 after cookie regulations got tightened up, and we're not really seeing the full picture, but they didn't know what the full picture was for their traffic. This is server-side stats. So it's giving you a really accurate picture of requests coming in through Umbraco. That's a great thing, but it doesn't come without its risks. Bot traffic will trigger server requests. So it's really important to filter out as much of that as you can. There is bot mitigation inside Engage, but what we are starting to see now is bots that are using headless Chrome. So the user agent is Chrome, and it's accepting cookies, and it's running JavaScript. So we just shut down one, which was coming through an AWS monitoring service in 2 locations in the States, just crawling the site all the time. Don't know who set it up, don't know why, but we need to filter that stuff out. So we use Cloudflare's brilliantly named Superbot Fight Mode, which you can just enable, and its brilliant algorithms are there to try and filter out, identify automated traffic, and you can just flick a switch to say ban this. You can challenge them, you can put JavaScript challenges in front of them, but we just filter it all out. But there are still things that can get through, and when those things get through, they will skew your stats a bit. So we've got to be careful about that. We have events and goals, and we have events synchronizing in from GA4 through the bridging component that's within Engage. So all the work that's been put into GA4 tracking is now inside Engage, and you can use that to trigger goals. You can use goals to inform the results of A/B testing. And clients running a test right now of trying to drive more traffic to the guild, which is the primary objective of the site, and highlighted it in the nav to see if that would make any difference. Now, interestingly, as I possibly expected, if I was being really, really critical, don't make a button red, but that's the brand color, so that's what we've got to play with. Fewer people are clicking it now, it's red, than before. So fine, it's a negative test, you've tried it, pull it, let's get it out of there. But some things I would say about this are, make sure you're testing something that's getting enough traffic, or make sure you're testing over a long enough period. If your site is low traffic, which ours is, it's a fairly niche site, it's not got huge amounts of visitors every day. It's certainly busy, but that particular page or that particular test needs to have a statistically greater amount of interactions to be a result. And I think sometimes I'm seeing clients putting tests on things that I'm wondering, who's going to see that? Testing things at the bottom of the page when we know people don't scroll that far. So clear-cut test cases are really important in this. But I'd also say, with experience from Sitecore as well as with Engage, It's really crucial to get your client to think about their plan up front. Do some consultancy with them. Ask them, what are your events? What do you want to track across this? What are your goals in a hierarchy? What's your most important goal? And what are your, passing ephemeral goals that you might want to track as well? Get them to structure that up front. Get them to think about what test cases they want to run. We sometimes have to support with a bit of custom JavaScript to run custom events, just to fire on the right button. You can do it through GTM, but sometimes it's better off done with a little bit of support that we can give the client. But we really kind of need to know that all up front. If you install Engage and let the client just go playing, they're probably going to come straight back to you with some support cases. And support cases, crucially for us as development teams, it's not like there's a bug, there's an error on that page, I just got an error message, what is it? We can trace code, we can look at the code, we can replicate it, we can patch it, we can push a button in DevOps and away it goes and it's fixed. But when you get a support case that just says, this data doesn't look right, at that point, you're in a place where you have to go digging through SQL. And we've been in that place a couple of times, and it's mainly been down to bot traffic. So you can see here, we've got a consistent number of visitors. We've got a consistent number of goal completions, I would say, for the type of test that we're running. But the page views is off the chart here because we've got a bot. There's a bot getting through, acting as one user, but calling this page multiple times and racking up our stats. So we need to be able to identify that, be able to dig into the database really quickly, be able to filter that traffic out and rebuild the reports and make sure that they're not skewing stats. So it's likely you'll need to have a support system in place where you can handle those, mainly going back to the client and say, what data compared to what's your expectation, and then take it from there. But right now, we're old school, we quite like getting our hands dirty with SQL. And we've got some big queries that we'll run. And again, with great support from Tom at Engage, we're able to dig into these things and find out a bit more about them. And I know they've got lots and lots of plans in place for the next year or so to bring more reporting in, bring additional features which support this kind of use case. But Engage is a great tool for the ease of installation and everything else that we've got going on. It's fantastic. So wrapping things up, how did we do? We got seagulls. So, like I say, this is not a huge traffic website, but we ran a campaign a couple of months ago to sell a limited edition bottle called the Luminary No. 3. We've done these every year. And Luminary No. 3 was on offer to members to sign up in advance or for existing members to go and buy exclusively through the website. So 12,500 page views, but at the peak when the email went out, we were getting 300 concurrent users across the two instances, and Umbraco didn't sniff. We know we can handle an awful lot more. And as we're growing this is still year one, so as we're growing this brand and this platform out and adding more brands to it, we know we can handle more and more traffic comfortably. We're not concerned about that. We managed to get 3,800 new users subscribed in about 2 weeks leading up to the campaign go live. That was mainly driven through meta advertising, Instagram, Facebook. And I'm not allowed to disclose numbers, but we sold a serious amount of whiskey in that 2 days. I was particularly impressed. This is not a cheap bottle. This is a £300 bottle of whiskey. And we sold a lot of it. So the client's happy, we are happy. We've proven again that this platform can handle good-sized campaigns and ultimately generate revenue and, crucially, new user sign-ups for the brand. So what have we learned through all that? Research and test your APIs in advance. You can kind of go down a road with APIs. Sometimes you're under pressure to move quickly. Reading the documentation, understanding where your limitations are, that's really crucial. It's a technical discovery, but sometimes mid-project it's hard to do a technical discovery when things are already moving at pace. But really, really look into your APIs. Never trust an out-of-the-box connector. I'm certainly never going to trust one again. I don't like them. They tend to get installed by people who are non-technical, and they've been installed in the past without even letting us know. And because we govern the whole ecosystem, we don't support HubSpot, but we support everything that connects into it. We need to know what's happening. Azure Front Door is not a failover load balancer, so just get it out of there, get it in the bin. It does a job, but just not very well. And never underestimate how much tracking you have to do on an e-commerce website. It's insane. There's so much data getting pushed everywhere all the time. But ultimately, the client needs the reports. They need to understand what's going on where. And log everything. If you think you're logging too much, you're probably not. Log some more. I don't care if it's debug mode is switched on your production environment. We can run fast enough to get all this information. But when it's as complex as this, you'll need it. You'll refer back to it. It'll be really important. But to summarize, if it's put together the right way, you can build a powerful, flexible, and highly scalable integrated digital platform with Umbraco at its heart. There's no reason you can't go ahead and do that yourselves. So without further ado, this is the best part. I've been looking forward to this for weeks. I'd like to propose a toast to Umbraco, to Codegarden, to all you guys for coming along, to everyone at home. Sorry you're not here to try the whiskey if you're watching in the streams. Thank you for coming along. As we say in Scotland, Slán